Good morning, everybody. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Timi Ilori, but most of you will know me as Timmy, and I'm a freshman at Liberty High School. If you did not know, my dad, Babatunde Ilori, is a huge soccer fan. He has been playing since he was 12 and has played at Azusa Pacific University. So naturally, he got his children into it as well. um, I began playing soccer at 8 years old and began to grow a passion for it more and more every year. Now, it was winter of 8th grade, and we were in the peak of our middle school soccer season. We were only 4 games away from making it to the semifinals of our league. However, I remember going on the bus ride home from one of our games and noticing that something was wrong with my tooth. I tried ignoring it for the rest of the night, but it only got worse. The next day, I woke up and my gums were heavily swollen, as if a bee had stung me inside my mouth. It only grew worse from there. I couldn't chew at all, which led me to a diet of horrible tasting chocolate protein shakes and water. A couple of days later, it had gotten so bad that my mom took me to the dentist. I was given a minor oral surgery that seemed to only make the pain 100 times worse. Normally, I would have begged my mom to let me stay home that day and possibly the whole week, but we had a game. Supporting my team was much more important to me than soothing my mouth pain. So that day, I went to my 5th period math with a numb mouth and a doctor's note explaining why I could not speak. You see, without the responsibility and commitment to being on a soccer team, I would have never went to school that day. My motives to step into that classroom were not to learn the Pythagorean theorem, but rather to show my loyalty to my sport, friends, and coach. From the age of 4 to a legal adult, kids across the country are forced into a system we all know as school. Today, I'm speaking to share why this system needs to change to support the values of our children. See, we have had the same system for over 100 years now. Desks lined up in rows, textbooks, and bells. As a small child, I remember school being fun. One day in class, once the last bell would ring on a random Friday afternoon, I remember almost wanting to cry because I would have to wait 2 days until the next time I got to go to school. The question is, what changed from 1st grade to 9th grade? What makes the color and excitement from the books and learning fade away? It is a lack of human connection, which leads to a lack of joy and engagement. To elaborate on the importance of human connection, I want to begin in the year 2020, specifically the date Friday, March 13th. It has now been almost 5 years since then, but the day Friday, March 13th still plays clearly in my head. It was the middle of 4th grade. I was happily smiling and giggling, talking to my friends about our weekend plans. As I was waiting at the gate for my mom, my teacher handed me a yellow paper stating that we would have a 2-week break from school due to this new coronavirus thing. I remember our teacher talking to us about this virus earlier this morning. She told us not to worry about it, but rather to take the necessary precautions, such as washing our hands multiple times a day and not sharing food. To be completely honest, in my 9-year-old brain, it sounded exactly like what my mom said every morning to me. So of course, like any other child or parent, when I saw that yellow slip, I saw an extended spring break, not a 2-year lockdown. Looking back at it now, my parents did a great job at making this quarantine thing bearable for us. Every weekday, my little brother, sister, and I would go to my grandma's house to do online school. At first, it was kind of fun. I got to go to school in the comfort of my grandma's room. But after some time, 3 days to be exact, I noticed that school on a computer was not really fun. Now, at the time, my school had a very strict no black screen rule. So my clever 9-year-old brain formulated a plan. I remember taking a picture of myself on my laptop, making that my green screen, and leaving. Eventually, I taught my, at the time, 2nd grade brother and 5-year-old sister to do the same. This became a daily routine for my siblings and I. Sometimes we wouldn't even bother putting on the green screen. We would just tell our teachers we needed to go to the bathroom and run off to play tag or something. I thank God that I have siblings, because without this silly little routine, I wouldn't know how to be able to grasp onto the little bit of playfulness and fun that I still had. Without human connection, how can anyone grasp onto any happiness or fun that they still have? The simple answer to that question is that they can't. Humans were created to be surrounded and interact with other humans. In middle school, textbooks are heavily introduced. Studying and reading from a textbook requires no human connection and interaction, and therefore means that it is not engaging for students at all. However, textbook reading only becomes more and more prominent as the educational experience continues. To measure what we value, we must know what our students value. Students value human connection. So it is no surprise that if you were to ask the average 12 to 18-year-old what motivates them to go to school, the first thing they will say isn't necessarily learning. If they say that anything motivates them, they will say that it is their friends, sports, or clubs that they are involved in. If you ask a child aged 12 to 18 what their favorite memory from this school year has been so far, they'll say that it is laughing so hard at lunch that the table fell over, or feeling that rush of excitement after scoring their team's first goal of the season, or perhaps driving to Subway with their friends during lunch. In order to measure what we value, we must learn what our children value. Our children value human connection. So the question is, how do we connect humans? You see, connections may look different for every child. For one, it might mean working on a group project with their friends. For another, it might mean simply studying silently in the library near a friend. But it most definitely is not reading from a textbook for an entire period or listening to a lecture for an entire period. Although lectures and literature can be very helpful, like anything, it needs to be done in small doses. For instance, a teacher could begin the lesson with a lecture and allow the class to break off into groups to discuss a question or topic. Furthermore, kids from middle school age and up should be taught how to openly discuss and conversate without raising their hand. Doing this will teach kids how to communicate in a real-world setting, and it will make the classroom a place where children are comfortable with sharing their ideas. Now, let's say some kids don't want to participate in the class discussion. As I've stated before, human connection can look different for everyone. These kids can be allowed to pair with a good friend, or they can listen to the discussions and take notes on it. Either way, this is still a much more engaging way of learning than listening to a long lecture. To close, I would like for you all to ask yourselves, what did I value as a student? What did you wish would have been thought of or put into classrooms? Now ask yourselves, how am I going to learn what my students value? How am I going to make my classroom or school or even district a place where students will thrive? To answer these questions, we must measure what we value. But to know what we value, we must first learn what our children value. Thank you.